Hello, and welcome to I Am Out, in my opinion. I'm your host, Natasha Villacis, and I'm joined by two analysts, Jackson and Spencer McKercher. You guys excited for today's episode?
I'm really excited. It's our first episode. I'm excited to get into it with you. We've been talking about this a lot, man. So good luck.
Yeah, good luck to you. We've been dreaming about this for a while now, so let's get it done.
So let's get right into it. Wednesday night, the Chicago Cubs defeated Cleveland Indians 8-7 to win Game 7 of the World Series and breaking their historic 108-year drought. So my question to you is, which drought did you want to end, Chicago's or Cleveland's? Let's start with James.
Spencer, Natasha, so there's two different questions. Whose did I want to end, and whose did I think deserved to end more? I wanted Chicago's to end. 108 years, that's nothing to shy away from. You know, they deserve that. It's been a century. Who did I think deserved, whose drought I think deserved to end more? I think Cleveland's. Here's why. The city of Cleveland needed it more than the city of Chicago. Not just the Cubs or the Indians, but the city as a whole. Chicago has had championships recently. You know, the Blackhawks in 2010, the White Sox in 2005, the Bulls for literally all of the 90s except for 2 years. So Chicago has had this. Cleveland hasn't had anything in 50 years. Hasn't even had a bright spot in 50 years. Until LeBron brought one to the Cavs just this year, though. Just this year. Okay, so it's been 50 years where no sports in Cleveland has had a championship. So to tell me that Chicago as a city as a whole deserved it more, yeah, I don't think it's true. We're forgetting about the White. Whenever someone was talking about this World Series, we would just forget that the White Sox existed. You know, Chicago hasn't won in 108 years. That's not true. The Cubs haven't won in 108 years. There's another team in Chicago. Cleveland has one team in every sport. Doesn't even have a hockey team.
See, but the thing, if you're gonna throw cities out there, yes, Cleveland as a city maybe deserved it. Mm-hmm. But y'all just came off a high of just having the Cavaliers win, right? You had the high of that. But the last great story of baseball was the Cubs winning. So if we're talking about an organization, not a city as a whole, yes, Chicago is in the middle of a dynasty with the Blackhawks. Mm-hmm. You have the White Sox winning in 05. You have the entire 90s with the Bulls and Michael Jordan.
Right.
But you have, as an organization, the Chicago Cubs, the last great story in baseball, 108 years. You don't have anything like that ever again now. They deserve to win it more. There's been 30 championships since the Cubs won the last, and there are 4 major sports. Right. Okay, 30 championships is a lot, yes, but as a whole, the Cubs deserve to win it more. As an organization, if we're going to talk city, I will still throw out Chicago because, I know our Philly watchers and viewers right now are going to be upset that I said this. Right, exactly. But I'm saying as a whole, I think the Cubs organization deserves it more.
Now, I will say this, and I've heard this before, that baseball wanted Cleveland to win it, to keep that whole story of the Cubs alive. Because, you know, you were talking about this off camera the other day, that MLB ratings are going down. And that's sports universal. You know, people are watching it less on TV. So to keep the interest in there, like the Cubs drought is way more interesting than the Indians drought.
Way more.
So the MLB kind of wanted the Indians to win because next year, there's still this story. It's not like the Cubs are dismantling after this year. The Cubs are keeping pretty much everyone essential to that win. You know, KB, Rizzo, Arietta Lester, you know.
Fowler might leave.
Fowler might leave. But until Game 7, Fowler was struggling. The whole World Series came alive in Game 7 when he needed to. But he was struggling for most of the World Series. So the people who carried them all season, the main people, are still coming back. So that story would still come back.
And see, that's the thing. I think just like the Red Sox, from when they won in 04 to 07 and 2013, this is going to turn into a small dynasty. You have every young player there. I think that Bryant, Rizzo, if you keep Lester, you keep Arrieta, you keep Hendricks, of course, who's a young superstar who led the league in ARA. No one knew about it. You keep them around, they're going to be fine for the next 2 or 3 years. They could even win back-to-back next year. But it's just, if we're going back to what we were saying, the whole idea of them winning a championship. It's been 108 years. The last time they won a championship, the traffic light wasn't invented, sliced bread wasn't invented. The Titanic was just being built.
Yeah, right.
You know, then you go to 1948. It's crazy. But I do want to a heck of a series. 27 runs combined. They both had 27 runs. The last time that happened was the last time the Indians won the World Series in 1948. Mm-hmm. It's just, what a remarkable series. But Chicago deserved to win it more than Cleveland, strictly because you have LeBron. LeBron's the king of that city. Chicago doesn't have a king. It was Michael Jordan. He's gone. Like now it could
Michael
be Chris
Jordan's
Bryant.
not from Chicago. Like
Right.
LeBron's from Cleveland,
Right.
which makes it that much more special. But
Exactly. So they have their high, and we know the Indians it very well could be back-to-back teams. Those two teams back in the World Series next year, and then hopefully the Indians maybe get to do their thing next year. But
how about Theo Epstein doing it with the Red Sox, ending their drought, doing it with the Cubs,
Right back.
ending their drought? It's pretty cool to see.
It's crazy, and that's the thing too. I mean, and then you have Ben Zobrist, fourth player ever to win back-to-back MVPs, but with two different teams. The last time that happened actually wasn't too long ago. Jake Peavy in 2013 with the Red Sox in 2013, Giants in 2014. So it's interesting, but I still think the Cubs deserve to win it more than the Indians strictly because last great story of baseball. And like we said, we did talk about it. It's that last great story is now not there. It's not there anymore, you know. And now, do you look at the Indians? Maybe.
Okay, moving on. Thursday night, Kevin Durant squared off with Russell Westbrook and the OKC Thunder for the first time since being signed to the Golden State Warriors on July 4th. Was this another game, or did it have a more significant meaning, Spencer?
What a game that was last night. Westbrook shows up in the photographer suit, throwing a little shade to KD since KD loves photography. What a game, though. I think Durant came out and exploded. As much as that kills me to say. Can't stand that man. Anyway, that's a different subject for a different topic. But the way Westbrook played was the fact that it was just another game to him. He didn't care, but you could see it got under his breath, and he even said after the game, they trash talked a little more than usual. He's never heard that come from Steph, come from Clay, come from even so the Harrison Barnes, not there anymore, but Draymond, yeah, exactly. So to me, it wasn't just a game to Kevin. He drops 29 points in the first half, fourth time he's ever done that, and every other time it's been against the Warriors when he's playing for the Thunder. In Oracle as well. So to me, it wasn't just another game, though. I think Westbrook came out and was just like, I'm going to do my thing like I always did, and did his thing. He had 20, 10, 7, but Durant, the way Durant played, you could tell he had a little more spark under his butt. He had that, I need to prove myself. This is my home city now. This is my home arena. Let's go out and do this thing.
And I think it depends on who you ask, whether it was just another game. You asked Russ, and he wanted it to just be another game, But KD addressed the elephant in the room that Russ didn't. That you can't overlook the situation. You can't go out and try to treat us like, we're the Cavs or the Mavs or some other team that you're trying to beat. You got to recognize that it's KD versus Russ. And I think the fact that Russ tried to downplay that derailed him in the first half. Now, in the second half, he came back. It was a little more aggressive, a little more tenacious. We saw Russ. But in the first half, Russ was doing the things that killed Russ last year and the years before. Thinking too much, turning the ball over. But then this time, he didn't have Kevin Durant to bail him out. He didn't have Kevin Durant to come down and hit a crazy shot and defuse the situation. Kevin Durant would come down and hit a crazy shot for the Warriors and make the situation crazier. So of course it wasn't just another game. But you said Russ having 20, 10, and 7. At the end, the stat line looks great. But for Russ, 20, 10, and 7 is a subpar game. I mean, his averages right now are 34, 10, and 9 for the season after 5 games. So for him to have a 20, 10, and 7 game, noticing that he plays 30 minutes a game, 35 minutes a game. So he's those are numbers that are down. And there's a lot of factors that were against Russ. Him being in Oracle. Now, if this game would have happened in Chesapeake Bay Arena in OKC, we may have had a little bit of a different story. The crowd wouldn't have been with Kevin Durant. They would have been with Russ. The teams wouldn't have been with KD. OKC would have felt a little more pressure. OKC or the Golden State was at home. They thrive at home. The Oracle is said the toughest arena to play in. You know what I mean? So they elements, intangibles were on KD's side that weren't on Russ's side. The other thing I was looking at last night was the teams around it. The Warriors realized how hot KD got in the first half and fed him. There were about 5 or 6 possessions in a row that they would literally come down, hand it off to KD, and look for him to shoot. OKC didn't do that to a certain extent last year. They would want Russ to touch the ball. Russ would want to touch the ball. Russ would make himself touch the ball. But Golden State has a different type of camaraderie. They feed the hot hand. It's not your turn, my turn. It's if you make 3 shots in a row, you're gonna keep going until you miss.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're taking turns, and it's something that not only the Thunder haven't figured out how to guard, but I don't think the NBA's figured out how to guard it yet.
That's the thing, though. And then you look at Steph, and it's kind of he's in the back pocket. Even Clay, no one talked about it. It was just Durant versus Westbrook last night. And I don't know if that's going to continue throughout the season. I don't know if Steph is going to be okay with that. It's been a big topic at the beginning of the season. Is Steph going to sit back and let KD kind of do his thing? Is he going to be okay with him being the number one? Because, I mean, I don't know Steph's stat line last night. No one talked about Steph's stat line last night. It was the 2 stat lines of Westbrook and Durant,
right.
and that's it. But the thing is that the stat that got me, too, is that, yeah, Durant had a heck of a game, putting up 39, doing that. Westbrook accounted for more points. He had 20 points and assisted on 23 points for a total of 43 points. Meanwhile, Durant had 41 total accounted for points. He had 39 and only assisted on 2 of them, with only 1 assist in the game. But
I think that has more to do with, it's like the James Harden effect with the Rockets. The ball is going to be in Russ's hand 20 out of the 24 seconds of the shot clock. So one of 4 things is going to happen. He's taking a shot and missing it, taking a shot and making it, or he's passing it and whoever is taking the shot is missing or making. So most of the time, he's going to end up with either a point or an assist on that possession, just based on the fact that the ball is in his hands for most of the time. But I know we have to,
All right.
to get on.
Everyone knows that New England Patriots QB Tom Brady was suspended for the first 4 games of the season, but it hasn't seemed to affect his performance this season so far. In your opinion, does he deserve to be considered for league MVP, James?
Spencer. No. Yes, he does.
absolutely.
Yes, he does. Because I'm going to read you right now Tom Brady's stat line without 4 games. We are in week 9. He has played 5 games. Okay. In 5 games, my man has 12 touchdowns, 1,319 yards, and a QB rating of 133.9. That's missing 4 games. So, and here's why he deserves league MVP. Because he was suspended for something that he was accused for years ago. And that everybody, even inside the NFL, agreed that Roger Goodell had no right bringing it back up, had no right suspending him for 4 games as well. When there are other players around the league doing way worse things, not getting attention. And I'm pointing to Josh Brown, the kicker on the Giants, who just got released. Right? I mean, he deflated balls. And look, we're not gonna act like, one, that wasn't worse than Spygate that they got accused for in 2005. And we're not gonna act like that was the reason that they won, that they beat the Colts in the AFC Championship game. You're gonna tell me that they beat the Colts by 20 points because he deflated the balls a little bit?
Yes.
And he only put up,
Absolutely.
they only put up 43 points in that game because the Colts scored 20. If Andrew Luck came out and put up 30, Brady would have put up 50. If Andrew Luck would have put up 40, Brady would have put up 60. That's just how it
Deflated
happens.
his balls.
But
It's easier to throw. in
It's
cold
easier
weather.
to, but Andrew Luck's handling the same balls.
It's completely different balls.
But I just don't think that carries enough weight to come and suspend him for 4 games. Besides the fact he was suspended, he comes back and hits the ground running. Granted, it's easier when your 2 backup QBs are also winning games and not throwing interceptions and not derailing the team at all.
Like who they played.
It helps when he comes back against the Browns.
The Browns.
The worst team in the NFL. But it's not like he came back against the Browns and looked a little rusty. Dude looked like he'd been playing the entire season. Dude looked like he hadn't taken off since the Super Bowl of 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So he deserves to be up in discussion with league MVP. Because tell me right now who deserves league MVP more than Tom Brady.
I mean, okay, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Mike Evans. You could even throw out your boy Mike Evans that could win MVP.
Word to Mike Evans.
But it doesn't matter. This isn't an injury. I had a debate with another friend that the fact that, okay, if LeBron missed 30, maybe 40 games of the season this year, the 82-game season, but he did it with injury and then put up these type of numbers, yes, the man deserves because that's an injury. But you cheated. You literally cheated to deflate balls, to make the balls easier to throw in cold weather, to make everything. You cheated. It's not a suspended, yes, you can make the comparison to Josh Brown that no one's talking about that, but that has nothing to do with the football field. This is league MVP. There's no reason to cheat. Yes, it could have happened last year. No one knows. The ball boy that did it didn't know what he was doing, yes. But the fact that Tom Brady was telling him, and even Bill Belichick was telling him to do these things, disgusts me. And the fact that a man can win a league MVP because he was suspended for 4 games, not injured. If he was injured, yes. If he missed 4 games because of an injury, yeah, these are insane numbers. Yeah, he's leading the league in passer rating, completion percentage, touchdown percentage, and yards per pass.
And yards per pass play over 20 yards.
Awesome, good for him.
Big plays.
You were suspended because you were cheating. You cannot win a league MVP because you are a cheater.
But did he cheat or did his organization cheat? How much
He told them.
How much of the blame goes directly on Tom Brady and not the organization at all? Why was Belichick not suspended for 4 games?
Because is he throwing the football? Is he throwing the football?
But he's just as fault as Tom Brady is, in my opinion.
There's
If this is an organizational type thing, why wasn't Robert Kraft fined? Why wasn't Robert
Because
Kraft
he's not
penalized?
throwing the football.
But it's an organizational type thing, Spencer. You can't blame just the quarterback for something that the whole organization knew. For something that the ball boy is directly responsible for.
Because Tom's telling him.
If the
Tom
ball-
is telling him to do it, and that's the thing. Jay Feely came out and said it happened since 2003. You won a championship in 04, 05, and 07, I believe. You come out and do that, and you've been doing this since 03, and then people catch you. That's your fault. That's on you. That's not Robert Kraft.
Completely
That's
agreed.
not Bill Belichick.
Completely agreed. But he fought it and won it. But then why do you bring it back up 2 years later? Because Roger Goodell wants that power. He just can't. Roger Goodell can't take a loss. You and me both agree that the NFL is in shambles.
It's the no fun league.
In terms of the higher ups, if Roger Goodell does not get his way, he will find a way to then get his way. But do you think that's right? It's not. I'm not condoning Tom Brady deflating the balls. I'm not condoning it at all. What I'm saying is Roger Goodell had no reason bringing it up.
Moving on. In the beginning of the week, Carolina's Panther quarterback and current league MVP Cam Newton was outspoken about the lack of roughing the passer calls has been getting this season, saying he feels unsafe. Dropping back to the pass, does he have a point, Spencer?
Absolutely. Absolutely does this man have a point to say he's unsafe. And the fact that people and analysts on ESPN, Fox Sports, all these analysts are saying that he is a baby and calling for these passes because he wants the attention is insane. We can go back to the Tom Brady. If any man, any defensive player goes anywhere below the waist of Tom Brady, immediately.
They make it fine, they get kicked out the game.
Immediately get kicked out the game.
Yeah, right.
I don't care if Cam Newton is a 6'5", big quarterback who can run 240. I don't care. But you have to protect this man's career. He's the league MVP. Still, no matter what, and Tom Brady won't win MVP this year. Anyway, Cam Newton is the league MVP.
Yeah.
Last year, let's be real, he was the face of the league last year. You cannot be letting him get hurt like this. And he's not even getting hurt. He's big, he's tough. But the fact that he's not getting any of these calls, especially the one below the knee against Arizona last week in Carolina, that was crazy. And they admitted they missed them. But then the fact that the NFL, the head of officials, 2 days ago came out and said, oh, well, yeah, we've only missed 2 calls. No, you missed 3 or 4 calls a week. And the man has a right. I mean, if you look back at the Falcons game at the beginning of the season when he ran that 2-point conversion and whoever that linebacker was for the Falcons literally threw his whole body and hit Cam in his head.
After he had already crossed the plane.
After he already crossed the plane. You don't see them. Yes, he's big. Who cares? I don't care. He has a very big right to be upset right now. The NFL needs to do something to step up and protect not only Big Ben, not only Tom Brady, not only Eli Manning, not only even Carson Wentz. You need to protect the quarterbacks that can run. And I saw a stat the other day that said the top 3 quarterbacks that have gotten hit the most over the past 5 seasons since Cam's entered the league in 2011 was Cam Newton at 10 times a game, RG3 at 9 times a game, and then Russell Wilson at 7 times a game. 3 running quarterbacks. But still, they're still getting calls. You mean you even touch RG3's arm and it's broken. He's out for 4 weeks. Cam is tough, yes, but the NFL and the head of officials need to realize yes. And that goes back to these NFL officials, this is their this is their weekend job. They have normal jobs throughout the week. I agree with Sean Payton, who said earlier this week, saying they need to be full-time officials. Yes. They need to be going to classes. They need to be doing everything.
They need to be watching
improve.
as much film as players are.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They need to be him. And I think especially since Cam is your league MVP, regardless of their record, regardless of his performance, which right now is putrid.
Very bad.
Let's be honest. And 80 80.7 passer rating. He only has 1,500 yards. He only has 8 touchdowns. I just read
And
you.
they're 2-5.
I just read you Tom Brady's stat line.
Right.
Okay, after missing 4 games, is way more impressive than Cam's stat line. And this is your league MVP. But regardless of that, I think Cam needs to also help himself out. Cam has 100% a valid point. Maybe one of the most valid points of all the outspoken things he's come out with. Probably this has the most validity. Not only they haven't been missing, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. It's come out from the head of officials, from higher ups, that they've watched tapes and they've missed. They said almost like 40 rougher the passer calls that could have been called, for Cam Newton against defenses. But he also has to help himself out. When he gets outside of the pocket and becomes a runner, which Cam Newton is so lethal in, especially inside, the 10 or 5 yard line, he's got to help himself out by not pulling up at the end zone, which we've seen so many videos of him getting to the pylon and wanting, to do it flashy. So he pulls up, does a dance, maybe jumps in the air and extends his full body and, hits the pylon. Or, refusing to slide when scrambling for first down. So even duck his head sometimes and initiate contact. So he's got to help himself out in those areas. And when he does start to help himself out, when he starts taking precautions on himself, it'll make officials look at it as, okay, he doesn't want contact, so we got to look for contact that comes to him. Brady scrambles and doesn't look for contact.
Right.
Manning scrambles. Even Aaron Rodgers, who's so lethal with his legs, scrambles but then slides. You know what I mean? So he's got to help himself out in that. But people have to take him seriously. Now, I'm not gonna let him off the hook and say that these roughing the passer calls are an excuse for his bad performance, because it's not.
It's not.
Who did
You have Kelvin Benjamin back.
Who did he really lose? Josh Norman on the defensive side.
side of the ball.
You know what I mean?
The defense
He's
is
got the
very
same
good.
running back, the same receiving core, and got one of the best receivers in the NFL back in Kelvin Benjamin. In the first game of the season, when they lost by that Graham Gano missed field goal to the Broncos, all looked well. It didn't, it was the relaxed kind of thing. And, we weren't worried about it. They lost for something that Cam did not control. He didn't play his best, but he didn't play bad. Kelvin Benjamin came in and caught a touchdown pass in the very first drive.
Okay.
So Cam's got to help himself out. That's all I'm saying.
Switching gears from professional to college football, the new AP Top 25 ranking were released earlier this week, and there are some notable standouts. Which teams stand out to you most, and why matter, James?
I'm not even gonna feed into what you want to say. I'll let you handle
It's
that.
crazy.
Because we'll get to it. Who stands out to me the most
Go ahead.
is not even Washington at 5, which, let me explain, is not even that bad. Because I think Washington kind of wants to be at 5. Because if you get put in the top 4 right now for the college football playoff, that's a huge target on your back. And if you're not Bama, Clemson, or Michigan, you can easily get bounced out of there and someone else put in your position. So Washington's right on the front doorstep knocking in. They need 2 more impressive wins, which they'll get. They play Cal this weekend, okay, which is going to be an onslaughter, okay? Unless, maybe Jared Rosen figures it out. No? No. Okay. So they play Cal this weekend, and it's going to be an onslaught or a monstrosity, which will put them in the top 4 going into the home stretch for the college football playoff. But I'm looking at Louisville at number 7, and here's why. Louisville has 1 loss this year. Okay, that's to Clemson, in Clemson, in an overtime game, a 50-point overtime game, where Lamar Jackson still had 5 touchdowns. Who did Ohio State lose to? Penn State,
That's
right?
crazy.
Who currently sits at number 12.
That's nuts.
Whose loss is worse? Penn State, yeah, on the road in Happy Valley, not an easy place to play by any stretch of the imagination. These 2 teams have history, so Penn State is always going to know how to play Ohio State. And Louisville's new to the ACC as of 2 years ago. But, Louisville's loss, which is weird for me to say, Louisville's loss is way more impressive than Ohio State's loss. Ohio State lost to an unranked at the time Penn State team.
Right. Penn State.
At Penn State, when their Heisman hopeful JT Barrett struggled. Completely struggled for at least the first half of that game. You know what I mean? So Lamar Jackson didn't struggle against Clemson. Deshaun Watson just happened to outlast him. Clemson's defense got that 1 key stop in overtime that they needed.
It was at Clemson too, and it helps a lot.
And
that
it helps,
environment was insane.
it helps a lot, but that's what makes Louisville's loss, not okay, but more okay than Ohio State's loss. The fact that Ohio State only went from 2-6 in their loss,
Insane.
and Louisville went from 3-9, and then had to crawl their way back up to 7 after these two wins. Now I get Ohio State's strength of schedule is crazier. They play in the Big Ten. Louisville plays in the ACC. But Louisville, it's not like Louisville hasn't beaten impressive teams. Louisville went to Florida State also and murdered Florida State. So I think
at Louisville.
oh, it was at Louisville. Okay, but they still beat a number 2 Florida State team at the time. Beat them down. So I think you could switch Ohio State and Louisville. But I think Washington's okay. They deserve to be 4, yes. They're undefeated. They have a Heisman hopeful quarterback. But let's be real, no one's taking the Heisman from Lamar. At this point.
No one is.
At this point.
Unless Fournette does what he does.
And I was just about to say that to you. What do you think? What do you think LSU does against Bama?
Absolutely nothing.
Because, I mean,
Absolutely
Leonard Fournette was Heisman front runner until they went to Bama last year.
Right.
And got 33 yards
in
rushing,
bad-
and it literally went downhill. But Leonard Fournette came off an injury this year and is tearing it up.
Exploded.
And has LSU, a team that everybody took out of their minds in the beginning of the season with Les Miles, back to a number 15 on the doorstep of being top 10 again.
Right. But again, so the team that I'm gonna start off with Fournette first. The team that he played is an Ole Miss defense. Not an Alabama defense. They have their defensive tackle right now up for the Heisman. Their defensive tackle might be invited to New York when the Heisman ceremony is coming up. That's insane. That defense.
I got 3 quarterbacks that would disagree with you.
There's no way Bama loses this game. I don't care if it's in Baton Rouge or not. Going back though, what surprises me the most is what we stated earlier. A&M. Yes, A&M. Their only loss this year is to Alabama, the best team in the nation, and they're looking like it, and it's insane.
With a true freshman quarterback.
A&M has at Mississippi State, home against Ole Miss, home against Texas San Antonio, and then home against LSU. That LSU game is gonna, I think, decide what happens. They could very easily lose this weekend at Mississippi State. Very, very big trap game for them. Who knows what could happen? But Washington, if you look at Washington, they have Cal, home against USC, home against Arizona State, and then at Washington State, who right now is also undefeated in the Pac-12, sitting at 24th, not getting any recognition at all.
Because it's the Pac-12.
Because it's the Pac-12, yes.
But that's right. The Pac-12, Big Ten, SEC, like if we're gonna put them on a balance beam here, the Pac-12 is so far down compared to all these other conferences.
You could say the Big Ten right now. But what I don't understand is that A&M should not be 4th at all. The Washington is undefeated. If you look back, an undefeated team should always be in the top 4. I don't care if you have 1 loss or not. I think A&M should be out.
Okay.
Their schedules are very similar too. Looking at their schedules.
All right. Well, that's all for this episode. For my 2 analysts, Spencer McKercher, James Jackson, and their brilliant opinions, I'm Natasha Villacis. We'll see you again next week.
Good job, too.